Hey, welcome once again to another edition of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Today we're going to catch you up to date on all the news and notes around the league, including one of my favorite announcements all this week, the unveiling of the Carolina Hurricanes' third jersey. The Whale is back! One of the best jerseys ever. Matt, what do you say about that?
I know, yeah, they look pretty sick. I think they'll be wearing them towards the end of December in the game against Boston. But I think Justin Williams was wearing the uniforms, and man, they look pretty slick. I think a lot of the new third jerseys this year around the NHL have been looking pretty good. I think that the only ones I got a little question mark are the Winnipeg Jets in those baby blue jerseys, but like the Sharks, stealth black jerseys looked really good, and then the Flames are coming back with like those bright red jerseys again.
Love it.
But
I
yeah,
love it. Those bright red jerseys, the Canucks old jersey with the skate, the whale. Those are some of my favorite jerseys. The only jersey we're missing now is Colorado bringing back the Fleur de Lis and the Quebec Nordique old jersey. That would be awesome. But
yes.
those jerseys are making a comeback. I love it. So
Yeah, it's always something. Once when a team like brings back like some of those old school jerseys, they always seem to pop whenever teams bring those back.
absolutely. Some news and notes from around the league. We'll get into a few other things, but before we do, you mentioned to me before we went on air, Bob Cole is confirmed coming back to do some play-by-play for his 50th year, and this will be his final year. What kind of memories do you have of Bob Cole? I know you're a lot younger than me, so you don't remember a lot of the great calls he did in the 80s and 90s, but what memories do you have of Bob Cole?
Oh yeah. So it's just like I know from past highlights back in the stuff in the '80s and stuff. I'll let you touch on those, but he's got a few iconic ones. But yeah, Bob Cole. The biggest thing is his voice. It's like when you turn on a game, it's like you don't even need to see who's doing the game. As soon as you hear that voice, you're right in it. It's like I know his eyesight hasn't been the greatest, so sometimes he can be a little bit behind the play, but. I think what I brought up before we got on air was as of right now, it's like when a team scores a goal, you get like that delayed like 5 second reaction behind the play, and then all of a sudden it's like, scores sort of thing. But yeah, he's still one of the best out there, even though he does have trouble following the play a little bit. But yeah, 50 years doing sports broadcasting, that's absolutely crazy. But it'll be a good farewell year for him.
Yeah, I had no idea he's been on air that long, but if you look back, I guess it's been that long. My memories are, especially in the early 90s with the Leafs, he absolutely loved Doug Gilmour, just like Don Cherry did. And the Leafs were definitely his team. Uh, as a broadcaster, he shouldn't be too much of a homer, but he definitely was. And, of course, in '89, he did a great series call between the Canucks and the Calgary Flames. And I remember the Stanley Cup Finals between Calgary and Montreal when Lanny McDonald scored the big cup clinching goal on Patrick Roy. He did that before he made the call. If you watch it, he's like, McDonald! Oh, he scores! And it's pretty funny. He said he didn't know what to say, and nothing came out except the back in the day. So but he's definitely did some great calls through the 90s. I mean, him and Harry Neale, the 94 Canucks playoff run, there's so many great calls in there. But, the Greg Adams goal, not quite as good as the legendary Jim Robson, but it brings back a lot of memories. So NHL came down hard. Well, I guess, yeah, in my opinion, they came down pretty hard on Robert Bortuzzo today. Handing out a 3-game suspension, so 2 preseason games, 1 regular season game. My question to you is, does he deserve this? And does this mean they're letting Domi off a little lightly?
Oh, I think they're two separate situations. Like Domi came in early in the preseason, so it was a lot tougher to get him into the regular season because if if they were to get to the regular season, it would have had to have been an in-building hearing instead of the phone call. So like a hit to the head, and at least they got him to the one regular season game. Still no update on Kempny, even though that they don't really factor that in usually when it comes to the suspension. But three games and only one regular season game. I think that's perfect. Perfect amount of games for Tuzo.
I heard yesterday from Roberto Luongo that the most oddest thing about the Domi situation was Domi and Ekblad are actually really good friends off the ice. And when I heard that, I started laughing. Like, who just walks up to their buddy and suckers them right in the face, whether you're on the ice or off the ice? And a lot of the Florida Panthers were really upset about that whole situation, and they've all got, I believe it's December 27th when the two teams play each other. They've all got that circled on their calendar, so that will be an interesting date to look forward to see what if anything happens between Florida and Montreal. Couple signings in the NHL over the last 24 hours. Why don't you fill us in on those?
Yeah. So a couple of signings today. Columbus gave Mark Letestu 1 year, two-way deal worth $750K at the NHL level and $300K in the American Hockey League level. They placed Letestu on waivers to send him down to the American Hockey League. I think that's really good center depth for Columbus with guys like Brandon Dubinsky and Alexander Wenberg, who've had a lot of injury issues, especially last year between those two. So that allows a guy that has a bit of offense to, if there are injuries, that they can move him up into that top 12 right away. And Chicago gave defenseman Brandon Davidson 1 year, $650K deal. He was on a tryout there in Chicago. I think this is a good deal for Chicago. He's still young and still has a relatively some offensive upside. He got traded to the New York Islanders at the trade deadline last year by the Edmonton Oilers, by the Montreal Canadiens to the New York Islanders last year. So still good young defenseman, and especially with some of the injuries that Chicago has to start the season, he'll provide some good depth on that bottom six pairing.
Well, speaking of injuries, we talked about some injuries that were pretty major yesterday on our show. Today, there's a few more. Why don't you update us on a few injuries around the league?
Yeah, so especially here in Canucks, Thatcher Demko was placed in concussion protocol. Apparently, in the game day skate in Salt Lake City, he suffered the concussion, along with some other Canucks stuff. Berchi missed practice today with an illness, and Canucks confirmed that Antoine Roussel will start the season on IR, still suffering from the concussion issues. But other than that, actually, I think it was pretty quiet from what I saw from the rest around the league. But in some other Canuck news, they sent down Adam Gaudette and Olli Juolevi down to Utica and placed Brendan Gaunce on waivers.
I don't think those are surprising moves. I think if you've been watching the Canuck games, those were all expected. Some weird news in the NHL that we released yesterday about the cocaine ring in Finland on Juri Lehtera's property. The NHL is now doing their own investigation into it. How much more bizarre can this story get?
I know, it's absolutely crazy. It's just a guy that's actually well off. I think at least his cap hit for this year, it's around $4.5 million or something like that. So the guy's making good bank as of right now. So it's just one of those bizarre things. It's just we're still waiting for confirmation and stuff, but hopefully by the end of the week we'll get some confirmation on if he was involved or if it was just happen chance that the guys got arrested and just happened to be on his property.
Yeah, hopefully he's innocent until proven guilty, unlike some boards that make you guilty until you prove yourself innocent. You touched on some of the moves the Canucks made today. There's other moves around the league that have happened, as well as some players that I think have snuck through waivers that I'm a little surprised at. Why don't you touch on some of the moves today, and then let's touch on some of the players that have snuck through waivers.
Yeah. So the biggest name that I saw today, he doesn't have much NHL experience, but in the American Hockey League, he's played really well. Dylan Hetherington, who's a defenseman in the Dallas Stars organization, was looking to try to make that bottom six pairing, but they placed him on waivers today. I think he's a good young defensive defenseman. Even if I was the Canucks, I'd try to pick him up and get rid of Del Zotto. But especially with the defenseman being such a value in the NHL. I think he might get picked up. A couple of guys that went through waivers that we brought up the other day, like guys like Kirby Reichel, Michael McCarron, and Brandon Peary with Vegas. All those guys cleared and are sent down to the American Hockey League. Brandon Peary, it's sort of an intriguing career that he's had, like especially in Florida. This guy was a 20-goal scorer and looked like he was on his way up in his career. And then I think after that year in Florida, he became a UFA, and then he never really found a spot. And then he signed in Vegas last year, and then he got called up really late at the end of the season as Vegas was resting guys. And I think one game against the Canucks, he had a couple goals and still showed that he had that scoring touch. But I guess he's just one of those guys that teams aren't really looking to make a move on, or are just happy with the guys that they have at this moment.
Yeah, definitely. He's over half a point per game in the NHL in over 200 games that he's played. He actually has 101 points so far in the NHL in his career. He has bounced around a lot of teams, but in those teams when he does play and given a chance to play, he always seems to put up points. I was surprised he didn't take on a bigger role with Florida, and then he's been bounced around to a few teams since. With Vegas last year, he played those last 2 games of the regular season and had 3 goals. So the guy can put the puck in the net. By the way, former revision pro roller hockey player, Brandon Peary. Give him a shout out there. But I'm just surprised that a team like the Canucks that are struggling to score, or that know they're going to struggle to score, aren't making a stab at a guy like Brandon Peary that could potentially help their offense. I saw a few other guys that got sent down. Guys like Chase DeLeo out of Anaheim, I think, another former roller hockey player that is really small but has a lot of hands and was involved in a deal between Anaheim and Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Is a pretty good prospect there. And even some of the guys that are still up at camps, like Evan Bouchard, I think, in Edmonton, has surprised me a little bit. I saw Adam Boqvist got sent back down to London of the OHL today from Chicago. Who surprised you and is still with the team that they're trying out for right now?
Well, the guy that I brought up yesterday, Kotkaniemi, it really looked like when they drafted him that he was going to be a bit of a longer-term contract. But as of today, I think Julian said he's really making it tough not to have him start the year, at least with Montreal this year. So with all the Habs fans that were really upset that they took him over guys like Zadina and Hughes and all those guys that went after, and Brady Tkachuk. It looks like he'll be starting in the top 6 there. And then another big surprise with Detroit. I think Dennis Chwalski had another goal last night. Between their big 3 prospects in Chwalski, Michael Rasmussen, and Philip Zadina, all 3 of those guys are looking to get spots to start the year in Detroit. And I think all 3 of them have a very high chance of making the opening night lineup, especially with Chwalski. He played like another 22 and a half minutes, which was about like 3 minutes more than the next defenseman in yesterday's game against Boston. He's really turning heads there in Detroit.
Cholowski, of course, I think he's made a big case for himself to stay in Detroit to start the season at least. And then with Mike Green going down with his liver illness, or I believe it's a liver illness, he's definitely made a case for himself to stay there. Word on the street is Zadina still may end up down in Grand Rapids, but he scored a big overtime goal last night. That's not going to hurt his chances, I'm sure. But who else stood out from you in the games last night? I know for me, the Islanders had Barzal and Bailey had a few. They both had a couple of assists. There's some more high-scoring games, especially in California.
Yeah. So Anaheim in LA, a really high-scoring game. Anaheim won 7-4 last night. Especially some big night from Adam Henrique, who had 2 goals and 3 points. Silverberg had another 3 points. Maxime Comtois had 2 goals and 3 points. Especially with some injuries on the wings in the Nick Ritchie situation, he could be pushing to at least get like a 9-game look to start the year in Anaheim. Along with also with the Islanders, Ryan Pulock had another 2 goals last night. It looks like he could be a good fit on that top power play unit, moving ahead of Nick Leddy with that big shot that he has on the point.
I saw in LA as well that Kyle Clegg had another point or 2.
Yes.
Really pushing for a spot on that defense.
And then in the Toronto-Montreal, Marner had another huge night, goal and 4 points. I think if you want to talk about a guy that could have a huge breakout year along with playing with John Tavares, I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy get between 80 to 90 points this year. If he continues this hot streak in the preseason, what he did in the second half of the year in Toronto, this guy could be a pretty special player. Even in proving a lot of guys wrong in his draft year that laughed at the Leafs for drafting him as high as they did in that year's draft. But yeah, the guy continues to rack up points. And along with Toronto, it looks like Curtis McElhinney. It's not confirmed, but it looks like he's the favorite to back up Frederik Andersen, which will be interesting to see where Garrett Sparks, who was American Hockey League Goalie of the Year, if I remember correctly, last year. If he does get placed on waivers, if there is a team that will take a shot at him to give him a look at their backup job.
Garrett Sparks is definitely high up on a lot of people's list as a potential goalie of the future. I hate using that term, but it's overused here in Vancouver in the goalie graveyard, which we're kind of, from what I've been seeing, we're not really the goalie graveyard. We're kind of right in the middle of all the different teams and the amount of goalies they've used over the years. But final thoughts before we wrap up today's show.
Yeah, so Erik Karlsson makes his debut tonight for the San Jose Sharks. I'll be really intrigued. I think we brought up that he'll be paired with Marc-Edouard Vlasic, and that could be one of the best pairings in the NHL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that'll be the big game to keep an eye on to see how that goes. But yeah, I think here in Vancouver it'll be pretty quiet until Saturday, until the Canucks wrap up their preseason in Kelowna against the Arizona Coyotes.
Excellent. Well, remember to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. Leave your comments below on this video. Let us know about your team, how's it doing, and some of the players that you want to talk about. Interact with us, as we love to interact with you guys. And remember to tell your friends about B&B Hockey Talk, as we are now actually getting pretty close to looking for sponsorship for this show. So if you own a business or are looking to get your name out more, feel free to drop us a message on either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get back to you. Once again, I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host Matt Balzer, and we love bringing you B&B Hockey Talk each and every day. Stay tuned tomorrow for our next episode, and you guys all have a fantastic evening.